Hello everybody and welcome back to the channel. Today we're going to talk about AEW All In 2023, which right from the beginning felt like the biggest deal in the world, right from the pre-0 hour show even. Like it just filled me with so much excitement and that feeling never left me. We opened the show with Aussie Open versus Better Than You Bay Bay, MJF and Adam Cole, and this was the perfect way to open the show. It felt like a huge burst of energy and it put everybody in a good mood. This is the first of many times I'm going to talk about the entrances throughout the show, but one thing I did want to point out was that they cut off the Adam Cole Bay Bay moment, and I thought that was the perfect thing to do because we had to save that for the main event. The match itself was very, very solid. It just played up all the things that they'd been teasing throughout all these weeks, especially the kangaroo kick from MJF, which got an insane pop. It was probably the loudest, maybe even of the night, looking back on it. One moment I have to point out was when Cole kicked Fletcher's head off midway through the match, and he sold that like $1 million. Another thing that he sold like $1 million was actually the finish to this match, which was a double clothesline. He like landed straight on his neck. It was perfect to sell like a double clothesline, you know what I mean? I actually didn't think that this match would play out how it did. They just picked up the win pretty clean, and they didn't really do any dissension teases, they didn't do any shenanigans. It was just the two bros kicking ass, and I really enjoyed that, especially seeing how the main event closed. MJF and Adam Cole will absolutely get me to tune into ROH for them alone, and we're going to talk about more of their relationship when the main event does come, but this is a very solid match to open the show. Next match and the final one on 0 hour, Jack Perry versus Hook for the FTW title, and Hook pulled up with those black forces on, Jack pulled up in that limo, like you just knew this would have a healthy amount of violence in it. The most memorable moment of the match was pretty easily when Jack said, "See, this is real glass, cry me a river," referring to the CM Punk drama that happened earlier this summer. And this looks even cooler, like looking back on it after we know what happened when Jack went backstage and got confronted by CM Punk apparently. But that's just goat shit. Don't ever doubt this man Jack Perry on a pay-per-view. He's called Pay-Per-View Perry for a reason, and he did great work here. His in-ring heel work was really, really good, and I think if he can just get like some of the outside stuff down, like especially the promos, he could be a really good heel. I didn't get the chance to predict this one in my video because I made it right before it got announced. I didn't even think about the collision matches. But it played out exactly how I thought it would. Hook retains and wins his belt back with the Red Rum in a very solid match. This was a lot of fun. The violence was kind of toned down, so it left all the rest of the violence on this show like looking even better. But it stood out in its own way, especially with the car. It was a great way to close out 0 hour, and it did a great job of just getting the crowd really hot going into the main show. Like I said, right into the main show, a match for the real world championship, CM Punk versus Samoa Joe, and this was an absolute banger. I mean, it started the match and Joe got that turnbuckle pyro like the dude was Kane. It made him look like an absolute badass, and CM Punk had 80,000 people, the whole fucking arena, singing Cult of Personality on his way to the ring. This shit was hard. One thing that was apparent throughout this entire match was how good Joe was at connecting with the crowd. They got on his side almost immediately, and they were popping for just about anything he did. It was just top-notch level stuff. He was at the top of his game during this match. He was walking around the ring, about to go for a huge kick on Punk in the corner, and he got the whole crowd to start chanting "Ole, ole, ole." It was just so great to see him do this stuff. These guys had near perfect chemistry, which isn't very surprising, but it was very noticeable with all the counters and reversals they were pulling out. One thing that stood out throughout the early part of this match was just how well Punk was selling Joe's chops. I mean, they sounded so crushing, and when he was like teetering off the middle rope, it just made them look so good. There was also the moment where Joe whipped Punk into the announce table, not even into it, through it, and Punk was actually the first one to bleed on this show. Like, shout out Big Phil for that. These two dudes were playing up their Hulk Hogan, John Cena shit, and the whole match just felt like a tone setter for how the show was gonna go. Both guys were just giving it their all, and they absolutely killed it. It ended on a nasty looking Pepsi plunge from the top rope, which is just insane because these dudes are not young anymore, and you've got Joe selling a move like that straight from the top rope. Like, that's insanely cool. This match was violent, it was personal, it was dramatic. Those are all the things I wanted to see from this match going in, and it delivered on all three fronts. All In just kept on rolling right from the jump. They were delivering all these matches just one after another. The next one being Golden Elite versus Bullet Club Gold and Konosuke Takeshita. I'm personally not someone who is hating on this match. I know there were a lot of people that were, But I feel like everybody who wasn't hating on this match kind of just had like a shut up and enjoy this moment when the two teams faced off. Like, that instantly made this a classic, honestly. Like, it was legendary stuff. All six guys felt like huge deals right from the get go, right from their entrances, and they all had their moments to shine. But what got the most time to shine was obviously Kenny and Takeshita, because they got a singles match to build next week, baby. Both guys got turns to absolutely lay into each other. Kenny was just blasting Takeshita with his knees, and Takeshita was blasting him right back with his forearms. They were not holding back. But like I said, the other guys got their moments. The face-off between Ibushi and Jay White was incredible. Murder Ibushi got to come out and absolutely destroy Jay's chest. He caved that shit in with a kick in front of 80,000 people, and that's just a moment for the ages, to be honest. Hangman also made his presence known this match. He made a statement to AEW and the bookers, because when he got a hot tag and started to run wild, the fans were so behind him. It just goes to show that Hangman needs another singles run, another singles like program very soon. There was a Golden Elite beatdown on Jay White, which let Kenny work with both of his former tag team partners, and that's always going to be cool. But let's move back into the focus of this match, the one-on-one between Kenny and Takeshita, and the crowd was fully behind it. It made me super excited to see their singles match at All Out, which has been announced by now. The person who got the win wasn't too surprising, but also, like, it was still kind of exciting. Takeshita scores a very clean-looking roll-up on Kenny Omega that happened right after Kenny destroyed Jay and Juice with V-triggers, and honestly, I'm going to say it, Takeshita should pin Kenny at All Out too. I personally think he has all the in-ring traits to be at the top of the card. He showed those moments here where the crowd was just losing it for all of his face-offs, and like his moments with Ibushi and Kenny, they were just like so top level. With Don Callis as his manager, I think he's the perfect first foreign champion if they want to build him to that. Overall, this match did tend to get a little bit sloppy at times, but it never really brought it down too much overall. It kind of just felt like they really didn't like each other, and you know, sometimes sloppy matches like just make it all go to hell and you just hate it because of it. But this is one of those matches where I think the story lets it get away with that. And I mean, you throw Kenny, Hangman, Ibushi, Jay White, Juice Robinson, and Takeshita in a 6-man match, there's no way this would have been bad. I enjoyed this a lot. Next match, FTR versus Young Bucks. This was the one I and probably everyone else were anticipating like so much, and I personally don't really think it lived up to the hype. Just to start off, I know this is a little bit nitpicky, but I really think it would have worked a lot better later on in the card. Like, I just kind of would have wished it had more time to like build the anticipation, and like London could move into the night, which really changed the atmosphere of the show. Yeah, I just don't really care for the placement of it. It really felt like both teams were kind of taking a second to really get going into this. Like, you could feel the chemistry, but they were really building it way too slow. There was a really cool spot in the beginning, though, that I feel like I need to mention, was the suplex battle between Dax and Matt, which was like full of struggle, and I really enjoyed that. It felt like the first half of this match was kind of struggling with pacing issues. Like, maybe it's just a first watch thing, and when I watch it again, it'll feel different. But when Cash flew like a bullet to hit that spear onto Nick on the floor, this match picked up almost immediately. Both teams just started working with this pace and this like energy that I wasn't feeling throughout the first half of the match, and it made for a really exhilarating closing stretch that was full of drama. There was a really cool callback to their previous match when Cash faked the springboard to trick Matt, but then just decided to say fuck it and went for it again, and then missed and got hit with a BT trigger. That set up a perfect near fall, and it just worked really well. I think one of the coolest, if not the coolest moment of this entire match was actually the ending, when the Bucks went for the Meltzer driver, but it got countered into the Shatter Machine. That absolutely kicked ass. It honestly surprised me a lot to see the Bucks take the loss here. I know that FTR are on a really good run right now, and I really hope they move into a match with Aussie Open, but I kind of expected Bucks to just take it here. I was saying in my predictions video that I really wanted them to turn heel, and I kind of thought that the titles would be just maybe a way to do it, but I am enjoying that, you know, they didn't end up shaking FTR's hands at the end of the match, so actually them losing is going to set up their heel turn, which, sure, yeah, it works a lot better. Even though it hasn't felt like I've been too positive on this match, I can imagine, this match was very good. I could see that, like, of course these two teams are going to work really well together, but I think that the energy from the first two matches kind of just wasn't there. It really felt like something was missing. And again, maybe this was just my first viewing of the match like shit, so if I rewatch it, it'll feel a lot different. I'm for sure gonna do that, but as it stands right now, it was very good, but not as good as I would have kind of expected it to be. A match that absolutely did live up to the hype was the Stadium Stampede match. It was one of the best plunder brawls I've ever seen, and it was an absolute mess, like, for sure. But that's kind of what it's all about. We're reviewing another match. We have to mention the entrances because they were all cool throughout the show, but the BCC's black gear was badass. That shit was just so cool, and it should never be forgotten. That's all I gotta say about that. There was so much to pay attention to right from the get-go. They were brawling immediately. A few of them dipped off into the top of the stadium. Like, some stayed in the ring. But one of the first few moments that I specifically wrote down was the skewers into Jon Moxley's head. The dude was a fucking porcupine, and it was so nasty, but shit, I was going crazy for it. It's kind of one of those moments where I take a step back and I'm like, only wrestling fans could love like a grown man getting skewers put into his skull. Like I had mentioned, a few guys took their leave and went to the top of the rafters, and those two were Wheeler and Claudio, which are part of the BCC, which they're all about violence. But Jon Moxley brought double the violence to make up for their absence in the ring. The dude was just killing Orange with a fork at one point. Like, what the fuck? Trent was honestly the main guy in this match getting fucking killed. He was taking bumps onto barbed wire doors and shit. Like, this dude was an absolute punching bag here. You know how I mentioned that only wrestling fans would enjoy skewers in a grown man's head? When you ask me, like, why I love wrestling so much, I'm gonna point to the fucking insane pop that Sue got when she rolled up in her van and brought fucking cookies. That was just the sweetest moment ever. That's what it's all about when it comes to pro wrestling. Fucking 80,000 people losing their shit because one of the wrestlers' moms pulled up and brought cookies for the gang. One thing they didn't really mention in the match and kind of left it out to dry, but I knew about because I was on Twitter like a freak. Penta was taken to the back at the beginning of the match after getting spiked onto a chair, but ended up coming back as Penta Oscuro and destroyed Santana with a sunset flip powerbomb off of a ladder that fucking broke, and then he just went back up and did it anyways. Like, what a freak. Dudes were just leaving their lives in the ring in this one. It was fucking carnage, but it was absolute perfection. The ending of this match was exactly what you would expect of it. Orange Cassidy puts duct tape on the outside of his hands, sticks his hand in a broken glass so it'll all stick, and he hits Claudio with an orange punch with the glass hand. That's just so fucking beast, man. What can I even say? This was violent, this was hectic, it was pure adrenaline, and I wouldn't have it any other way. And I know that most of you watching this video are gonna look back at my review of this match and be like, hey, you missed this, hey, you missed that. There's absolutely no way that I could get all of this. It could go on forever. If you haven't seen this match, you have to go watch it. All I'm going to say is that this was my match of the night. Women's four-way match. Going into this match, the only thing that I could think was that the women have to deliver here. They have to live up to the standard that this show was setting. And I actually think they did. It's too bad that even after a solid match that had a lot of good drama in it and really worked, that the only thing we're left thinking about is the winner, because what a fucking stupid choice. Before we get into all that, we gotta talk about the match. This whole thing was based on the Outcast breaking up, which started like almost immediately when Tony and Saraya were fighting to see who could pin Britt, which was honestly pretty funny. This continued even more when Tony fucking blasted Saraya's mom with a forearm. Like, the lady went like back a couple of rows, and Saraya obviously did not like that. Saraya and Tony just started scrapping. This is the end of the Outcast. Tony got the upper hand and did attempt to hip attack Saraya in the corner on an exposed turnbuckle, but she only kind of stopped after Ruby talked her down and then just slapped the shit out of Ruby. Toni Storm has the best character right now. It works so well when Tony was just pleading with Ruby. She was like, I'm so sorry. But you know she's gonna cut like a scathing promo on her on Wednesday or Saturday, and it's gonna be amazing. This is all leading to the Outcasts probably being done for, which is a good idea because Tony has given them nothing to do for months and it's led to them getting pretty stale. Another spot I just absolutely have to mention before we talk about this winner, Britt Baker's curb stomp onto Tony while she was in Saraya's submission was absolutely killer. She destroyed her with that. It was awesome. It was probably one of my favorite Britt Baker moments that I can remember. Britt was distracted with Shida trying to get her in the lockjaw, and this left Toni Storm wide open for Saraya to hit her with her finisher, the page turner is what it's called, and get the win, and I'm just so lost. Look, man, I get it. She's in her hometown. She got a great pop for the win because of it, and for her entrance, which was also really cool. I mean, We Will Rock You was awesome. But, like, come on, dude. Like, do you guys know how many Saraya singles matches we've had in AEW since she joined the company? 4. And she's now the women's world champion. Shida was having a great run. She was getting all the moments she missed out on while she was champ during the pandemic. And then you flip it to Saraya after such little time for what? Like a cheap hometown pop, dude? Like, come on. Saraya has not been good in her matches so far. I'm sorry, I have to say it. This division is permanently cooked until proven otherwise. Tony just wants this to be unstable, flipping the belt back and forth and not giving, like, someone like Shida a long reign to really build it up again. And yeah, we're gonna get the Mercedes Moné match. They showed her a million times throughout the show, and that's cool or whatever, but that's not a good enough reason to put the belt on Saraya. That didn't need a belt. This match was good. I was enjoying it, but after this, I just didn't feel any other emotion except for, like, sadness for Shida, who kind of just got fucked over, and that's just the AEW women's division, man. I miss Jamie Hayter. After such a deflating finish to the end of the last match, what a perfect way to get me right back into it. Entrance speak time. Swerves was super awesome. He felt like a big time boxer, which is just like perfect for him. But you're not going to beat Sting with Metallica. Like, this just made me feel like we were so back. So many fun moments throughout this match. Sting was rocking one of Darby's thumbtack jackets. Darby was hitting dives and moonsaults with his hands taped up. I mean, this was such like a great energy shift. Sting goes to put Swerve through a table with an elbow drop, but the table stiffs him. So this 64-year-old man, by the way, decides to go for round 2 to put him through it. How fucking beast is that? One of the most brutal moments of the entire night was when Darby goes for a coffin drop from the top rope to the outside on the coffin while Swerve is on it. Swerve obviously dives off, and Darby's head just whiplashes in the most violent way possible. It was absolutely brutal to watch. The closing stretch of this match was awesome. By this point, the coffin is so caved in, it looks like a car, like, it looks like it went through a car crash. Like, it tumbled around in like a giant trailer or some shit. But again, 64-year-old Sting decides to hit a scorpion death drop on top of it. Bro. Darby and Sting get the win, of course. This match was placed in the most perfect spot after that women's match. It was full of such fun moments. Like, this was just so cool, man. I think the only way that you could really close this match out with is this is what it feels like, Sting. The highest attendance in wrestling, and I'm not going to say this a lot on this channel because I'm not one of these people. But fuck the Fed. Sting on top, baby. Will Ospreay versus Chris Jericho. A match that I was just so super fucking excited for. And in my predictions video, I specifically mentioned the entrances to this as being moments that I was super hyped for. And they both lived up to it. They were as big as it gets. Jericho was absolutely relishing in this moment. He did the Queen AOs. And then he sung his own song Judas on the way to his own match at Wembley Stadium for a company that he helped build. That's the most legendary shit ever. I'm so sorry. But don't think that the crowd was about to let Ospreay down, because 80,000 people were out there singing Elevated on Ospreay's way to the ring. The vibes were at an all-time high right from the start. The best way that I can describe this match is inspired, specifically Jericho, who is giving his all. Similar to Sting, this man is 52 years old and still pulling out Lion Tamer counters to the Stormbreaker and fucking Dragon Ranas. Like, never count out Le Champion again. Will also pulled the absolute best out of him this match, and it just goes to show that he's the best in the world right now. Not for a second did Will feel out of place in the biggest stage in pro wrestling history. He is absolutely built for these main event level spots. This match was so hard hitting, filled with some insane spots. At one point, Jericho's chest was busted open by one of Will's chops. Like, these two were making Wembley feel like the fucking Tokyo Dome, dog. You're not going to find a single crowd throughout his entire career that Will Ospreay didn't get invested in his match. And in his home country, they were fucking loud as shit for the dude. There were so many moments in this match. This is one of those where I'm not going to get to know them all. You have to go see this match. It was insanely high level. And like I said in my predictions video, we're in a post G1 downtime throughout New Japan, and I absolutely love that they had this style of match on this card. It stood out so well, and it was just a great moment for Will. As a fan of his, like, I was just so happy for the guy. Whether he decides to become All Elite in January or stays in Japan, I'm going to watch anything Will Ospreay's in. This match was incredible. Please go out of your way to watch it. It was my second favorite of the entire night. Yeah, I'd say so. It was easily my favorite singles match. This was so awesome. Oh, one more thing. Never count out Chris Jericho. I have to say that one more time. There were people that were hating on this match because they thought Will deserved better. Nah, Jericho's still him. I'm so sorry. Will is the GOAT, but Jericho is still him. House of Black versus the Acclaimed. Another match, another amazing entrance we have to point out. This one being particularly special because the House of Black did a Bray Wyatt tribute. They brought the lantern out. They brought down the lights so that the Fireflies could come out. It was such a special moment. It's one of those things where, like, it's just a perfect way to pay tribute to one of their friends. It was beautiful, really. We also learned before this match started that the house rule or stipulation that the Acclaimed picked was a no-holds-barred match, which really was like a choice. I don't know why they wouldn't announce that beforehand, but even so, how did they expect to follow up Stadium Stampede and a coffin match? That was just a really bad decision, in my opinion. I think this could have worked much better as just a singles match. We did not need like another plunder match here, and it sadly felt pretty underwhelming because of it. The in-ring work was very solid. The most memorable moment was obviously when Anthony Bowen scissored Julia Hart, which is probably the most like out of context sentence you can pull, but it's like pro wrestling at its fucking like finest. It's, if there's a sentence you could pull out, be like, yeah, this is pro wrestling, that's the one. Billy Gunn also kicked out of Malachi's kick, which isn't something that happened in AEW, and I kind of wish they pointed out a little bit more and made a bigger focal point out of, but it did lead to the Acclaim getting the win and becoming the new Trios champions. I don't have much to say about this match, but something I will say is that I am excited to see what the Acclaim do with the belts. I am disappointed in what the House of Black ended up doing with their run, but the Acclaimed are so over. They're always going to be over, and I think they have really good matches, so give them something to do. I think they can make the Trios belts like really stand out on the show they're on. One last thing I'm going to say is that all three house members need to go on singles runs throughout the end of this year. I need all of them. They're all so good. I fucking need that in my life. MJF versus Adam Cole, the main event of AEW All In 2023. I probably should have expected a match like this going into it. It was always going to be melodrama out the ass, and I can't say it didn't work because I was going crazy for it. One more match, one more chance to talk about entrances. MJF felt like a fucking star during his. He always brings the best stuff for pay-per-views, but my focus was on how loud the boom and the bebes were. For Cole, that boom was a legit boom. Like, it was a fucking explosion of noise. The crowd kept that energy up throughout this match. They were absolutely white hot throughout the entire thing, and it really ended up being the defining aspect of what made this atmosphere so perfect. The match was centered around Cole willing to do the nasty shit and be the bad guy to win the big one, and MJF, who is the perennial bad guy, just not being able to. Cole was ripping the Better Than You Bebe shirt off of MJF's back and screaming in his face about how he had him beat last time. The guy was an absolute asshole, and it was working because it left the crowd so stunned. They were just so like taken aback by how openly assholish Cole was being, but when they woke up, like I said, they were so fucking loud for the white meat babyface MJF, and he played it so well. he had this crowd popping for eye pokes. Like, there's nobody else on the planet who could do that except for MJF. Of course, as the babyface, Max had to take the nastiest of bumps, specifically one on his neck where he took a brainbuster on the steps. It was just so nasty. The dude, he looked dead on the floor afterwards. His body just contorted in the most awful way, and all you could do was grimace and hope he was all good. But that shit was a stadium match bump. One thing I didn't understand was when Cole was waiting for the countout on MJF right after that, how I said he was dead on the floor. Like, he knew he wouldn't win the belt on that. It made him look like a fucking dumbass. I didn't really enjoy the double cover into the draw. It felt like they pushed my melodrama tolerance a bit too much, like kind of taking it a step too far. But when MJF said, "We're going until we have a fucking winner in Wembley," he saved it. That was fucking beast. The match restarted, and you might think that one of the two competitors would be taking the worst bumps, but no. It was the referee Bryce Remsburg who absolutely got killed with a Panama Sunrise, which set up the Eddie Guerrero chair spot, and this was probably the best one we've seen in years. The way they threw that chair back and forth to each other was just so fucking funny, and then Cole's reaction face to MJF going down was even funnier. Roddy 22 ended up getting involved as well, kicking MJF in the balls and trying to push Cole to blast Max with the belt, which he did consider and was going to do, but ultimately kind of decided against it and left Roddy cucked once again. This also left him wide open for an MJF roll-up to score the win, but the winner wasn't even the focus. It was on if they were going to remain best friends. MJF was just trying to console his best buddy Adam Cole, who is breaking down after the loss. He hands him the ROH tag belt. Cole throws it away, and then Max just loses it. He calls him a fake friend, a fucking fraud. He wasn't really his friend, and he just turns around so Cole could hit him with the belt and backstab him. And I gotta say, MJF's acting has always been very good, but it was fucking great here. He just displayed such a wide range of emotions through his voice, and it made Cole's decision hit even harder. Cole throws down the belt and runs over and embraces Max in a hug, and it was just the perfect way to close out this show. The moment just left my heart so full, and so did this entire show. This was just the culmination of everything AEW has been up to this point, and it was just such an incredible feeling to see AEW on top of the world. As someone who goes to shows, buys shirts, makes content about this company, it made me feel so like complete as a fan. Maybe I'm just a fucking mark. Maybe I'm just a loser for saying shit like that, but it was just so awesome to see. I love seeing all the clips and everybody talking about it after the fact. It's just incredible, and honestly, this is a show that's never going to be forgotten, and I'm glad that I got to watch it live. I'm also happy to report that MJF is the greatest AEW World Champion of all time, and while the main event wasn't the match that I kind of expected it or was looking forward to it being, I wasn't disappointed in the slightest because this story is so fucking good. I fucking love this show, and I hope you guys fucking love this video. If you did, you're very passionate about the content. I mean, you fucking loved it, so shout out to you. But anyways, leave a like down below, comment your favorite match or moment from the show, subscribe to the channel if you love wrestling, because we're going to be back later this week to talk AEW All Out. Make sure to check that video out. And yeah, much love, y'all. Peace.